am Deidre Quinn, and welcome to Pending and Trending, a podcast that started in real estate and grew into so much more. Here, we talk about the power of building wealth, creating opportunities, and designing a life that lasts for generations. With expert guests and real conversations, my mission is simple: to help you elevate your journey and build the legacy you deserve. Welcome back to Pending and Trending. I am your host, Deidre Quinn, and today's conversation is one every investor needs to hear, especially if you're thinking about long-term wealth, resilience, and smart strategy. My guest today is Jorge Vazquez, CEO of Greystone Investment Group. Jorge is an investor, author, and award-winning broker with a track record that spans thousands of transactions. He's worked with institutional players like Blackstone Invitation Homes, led large-scale portfolio sales, and is widely known for his expertise in creative financing. But what makes his story especially powerful is that it's not just about wins. He lived through the last market crash, lost properties, and rebuilt. Smarter, more disciplined, and more intentional. Today, he mentors agents and investors on how to build wealth without hype, shortcuts, or needing massive savings. This episode is about equity, patience, and consistency, staying in the game long enough to win. Let's dive in. Jorge, I'm so happy to have you here today. Thanks so much for being on.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. You have been very open about losing properties during the last market crash, I believe. So can you take us back to that moment to get started and what actually happened?
Wow, it was awful. I don't want to compare myself to a soldier, but I feel like I went to Iraq. That's the way that it felt back then, the 2007s throughout 2010. I remember exactly the day that the last bank said to me, Jorge, this is the last investor loan we're going to do. That was December of 2007. I remember Bank of America saying, no more of those crazy loans. And I'm like, okay, what are we going to do now? And everything collapsing right after. And it was very tough. It took me a lot of years to recoup from that mentally.
Sure.
Yes, and I lost 22 homes, lost my little mansion, all of my cars. I thought that I was invincible. I was in my mid-20s. I thought I was this crap. I knew everything. And boy, the market humbled me. I lost my marriage, everything. I had to start from zero. Yep.
Okay. What was the hardest lesson at that time?
I think one of the first ones is that real estate goes up forever, indefinitely, and that there's not going to be corrections, and that you don't have to stress test your properties. It's just like anything. You have to diversify. You have to stress test things. You have to make sure that if the market changes, that the rents still can support the debt. Living beyond my means. Back in those days, I would say 2007, I had a property that was worth, my primary home bought it for $700,000 in Tampa. So that's the equal of a $2 million home nowadays. And also had a building in downtown. I was paying $5,000, $6,000 a month. I just overdid it. I think that what I learned is I drive a 2010 Camry now. I've paid off for 7 years. So what I learned is not living beyond my means, taking baby steps when it comes to expenses. That's amazing.
Okay, that's great advice. And how did it change the way you evaluate your investments?
Totally changed it. So the minute that, because it was very tough. I almost committed suicide, to be honest with you. And one of my clients that I owe money to, check this out, one of the clients that I owe money to, because to make matters worse, I owe $500,000 to individuals, which I later paid off everybody. Now they're my fans, but one of them came to me and said, come to church. And originally I thought he wanted to punch me or something. And he's, no, come to church, let's start all over again. But I was able to change the ways I was doing things. I decided to let me take baby steps, let me make sure that, okay, so you asked me a question, how did that change? Anytime that I bought a property, I made sure that I was doing a stress test on the property. What that means is, if the market all of a sudden gets a correction, if my rents go from hypothetically $2,000 to $1,500 tomorrow, is the asset going to be able to sustain that. Okay, so that was number one. Number two, I was not over leveraging anymore. I don't care if the property had $200,000 in equity. I would not go beyond 70% of the value, no matter what. So if I had to be patient and I had to wait for those properties to gain some equity in order to pull out the equity and do the famous burst strategy, I would wait until I was at 70%, counting the cash out that I have planning to pull out.
Okay.
And third, I call it Tonka thinking. Anytime that I was investing into a rental property, I was thinking about not about what's sexy or how the property is going to look sexy, because I realized quickly that it's not about the tenant is in a transitional period and they're just looking for a place that is functional. I implemented the Tonka thinking. As long as it's durable, I go for durability more than sexiness when it comes to the rehabs that I do on my rental properties. Those three things, I would say.
Okay, I like that, the Tonka theory. Okay, wow. Okay, we're very lucky to be here with you today and that you have since rebuilt, and I think that that's super important to know because you learn so many things from your mistakes in hindsight. The how you mentioned this a little bit, but how do you personally define a good equity deal?
To me, it's all on the buy. People say, when do you do the deal? You do the deal when you buy the deal. Okay, so the deal that has enough equity, and this, every good deal is personal, right? Because you have two types of investors or three types of investors. But when it comes to rental properties, you have people that need velocity when it comes to building up wealth and building up equity in order to be able to buy more properties because they don't have the liquidity to do it themselves. So if it's a person that needs a creative business plan with most likely it's going to need properties that are going to be equity rich but cash flow poor. That means we educate the client. We say, listen, you only have $100,000. You have a goal of $10,000 a month. When you retire, we have 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, whatever the case might be. So we need to rely heavily on the equity build-up. So you might going to be cash flow negative the first few years, but the equity is going to be there to allow you to put velocity in your planning. So that's one type of deal. I would say that's a cash-rich equity deal that fits certain people, especially the people that are cash flow poor. Mm-hmm. And then you have people that have $2 million. They want to exit, or $3 million, they want to exit the stock market or their annuity or whatever the case might be. And they're like, I just want income now. So we worry less about the potential of that asset when it comes to how much equity is going to build. And I could give you a perfect example, right? If you buy a multi-unit, a duplex, fourplex, there's less likely for that multi-unit to participate on gentrification versus a property that looks exactly like the new property that just got rehab next to you and is selling for double the price. But those properties that are multi-unit are going to have the potential of building up more cash flow faster. So somebody with liquidity could jump into income right away. So the question is personal. What is a good deal? If you have poor equity, if you don't have a lot of money, you're going to go after properties that are going to build up equity quickly. If you have a lot of money, you're going to go for income right away.
Okay. And what's the most common mistake when people chase that income too early?
Oh, that's a good question. The biggest mistake is people saying, I want both. I want equity and I want cash flow. Everybody wants that, but unless you focus in a lane, you're not going to gain any velocity. So I tell clients, I understand that, but let's say sometimes I cannot get through them. So I said, okay, let's call it 49% one and 51% the other. This is how I put it so that way they could let it go. And then I'm able to uncover exactly what they're looking for. I was a licensed financial advisor for many years, so I do the same approach when it comes to real estate investing as well.
Okay. And then, so there's a lot of like social media strategies and all kinds of different things that are talked about. What strategies have stayed consistent across multiple market cycles, and how and what should people stop doing immediately?
Okay. So the best strategy in the planet, if not the galaxy, is the house hacking. Okay. So
Okay.
and then depending how bullish you want to go with it, is how much velocity you're gonna gain. If you barricade yourself in one room and rent every single room, and then separately, and then convert the garage into a studio, and do that for a year or two, you're gonna have a ton of equity. You're gonna have a ton of cash flow, and you'll be able to rinse and repeat at the speed of light, back to back. Now, depending, and this is where is the tough one, convincing the wife, convincing the wife to say, okay, so if you're married, what I had to do in my case, that's how I was able to buy 40 properties again, and I own 40 properties, is I was house hacking from property to property. And I told my
Okay.
significant other, do you mind if we're gonna jump into low income properties? We're probably gonna be in the hood for a little bit, but then eventually I'm gonna buy you a mansion, honey. And having that discussion with your partner, if you have somebody, that's the toughest part. But some of the properties that I was in, there was a rain coming in the living room, but I wanted to do my own house hacking. I wanted to do my own repairs because I knew the more I put into it, the bigger the sacrifice is, the faster that's going to be. So that's number one. And number two is the burst strategy. But we could talk about so many other strategies, the burst strategy, the house hacking, the subject to the sandwich leases. All of those still work.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's great. That's great. And then what are the risks that investors should understand before getting involved?
That anything that you could conceive could go wrong will go wrong eventually. So you have to prep for that. You have to have
Okay.
reserves. You're gonna hit a bad tenant eventually. You're gonna hit a period where rents goes down a little bit, or if you're buying flips, you know that the market it goes into cycles. So maybe the property was very hot in the summer. Now we're in the winter, and now the property's stuck. So you have to have a plan B. This is for flippers. I always say your plan B should be your stress test for flips, or can I rent the property in the worst case scenario? If
Okay.
I try for 6 months, nothing happened, can I rent the property and keep it going?
Got it. That's great advice. So if you had to boil your success down to mindset, what separates the people who build lasting wealth from those who quit?
Consistency. Consistency. So some people say I'm stubborn. Some people say stop going left or start going right. You're gonna hit yourself, but eventually you come around if you stay consistent. And like Jordan said, as long as you do 10,000 hours of something, you become a pro. Okay, so think about that. There's two things that happen when you stay consistent. You're overcoming, you're learning from every challenge, and you're becoming better at it. And you should be successful by that alone. But if you happen not to be successful because the cycle of the market is, you're still becoming a veteran in it. So eventually, before you know it, people are calling you and saying, you've been doing it for a long time. Can we do business together?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like insurance if you stick to something, but the minute you jump around, you're not building a foundation on anything. But that's the biggest thing. People quit too easy. That's a problem. Challenge me.
Quit too easy. They quit too easy. Okay. Now you and I saw an amazing video testimonial on your website before we joined. You're with Greystone Investment Group. Can you explain to our listeners what that is, how they would learn more, and just how that works?
Yes, thank you for asking me that question. I appreciate it. So I'm a former financial advisor where everybody that I had under wealth management said, we want to do real estate with you. And I brought everybody from those days to real estate. And we created a company where it's a one-stop shop. So the client could come, we'll find you off-market deals, We have relationships with state attorneys, trust attorneys, wholesalers for the past 20 years. So we find you properties that nobody has ever seen, not MLS deals, okay? We'll help you put the lending together. We'll help you put the lending that you need today. We'll help you put the lending that you're gonna need later if you need to cash out and buy more properties. We'll do the rehab for you. We own a property management company that does management throughout the entire state, except Miami and the Panhandle. So we have the guys that get us things super affordable. My Rolodex is your Rolodex. So you invest and we do the rest. If you have any questions, ask ChatGPT who's the best real estate investing company in Tampa. And it should say Greystone Investment Group.
I love that. I love that. That's excellent. That's excellent. So that's an amazing statement to leave off with here. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners before we sign off?
No, I just say stay consistent. If I did it without knowing any English, knowing nothing about real estate, and if I were to do an IQ test, I'm not the smart. I'm not Einstein. If I did it, anybody can do it, and I believe that you can do it as well.
That's great. That's great. Jorge, thank you so much for being on with us today. I really appreciate it. This has been a grounded and refreshing conversation. I really appreciate how you cut through the noise and bring it back to the fundamentals, and let us know how equity, patience, and discipline and consistency, of course, really pay off. For anyone listening and wants to learn more, make sure you check out Greystone Investment Group and explore his educational platforms, including Property Profit Academy, and take advantage of the free resources that you share that help investors learn real-world strategies without the pressure of the hype. If this episode resonated with you, be sure to subscribe, share it with someone that's building their own wealth journey, and join us next time on Pending and Trending, where we talk about wealth, mindset, and building multiple streams of income that last. Until next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Pending and Trending. Remember, generational wealth doesn't happen by accident, it happens by action. If you like today's episode, share it with a friend, subscribe, and let's keep elevating your journey together.